Welcome to the Recreation Parks Commission, January 15th. We're going to call the meeting to order at 6:33 p.m. And we're going to start with roll call here, so just please let me know if you're here. Commissioner LaFleur.
Here.
Commissioner Marigo.
Here.
Commissioner Vink.
Here.
Commissioner Redmond here. And it looks like Commissioner Hurt is not here, Commissioner Ono, and Commissioner Siegel. So we can mark them absent for now. Item number 2 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can we, if everybody is in agreement, can we get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abs? Nope, okay. Motion passes 5-0. Item number 3, brief announcements from staff, commissioners, and council liaisons. Staff, would you guys like to start here?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring an announcement about commission terms that are upcoming. So we have terms coming up for Tim and Eric and Miyako and Georgine. Georgine and Miyako are both up for the option for reappointment, and Tim and Eric have reached their 2-term limit. So that will be coming to a conclusion this June. Also, you should have all received the Form 700 from the clerk's office. That needs to be completed by April 1st. So please make sure you get that completed because that is a requirement to remain on the commission. And in February is when they will open up recruitments to fill any kind of vacancies for commissions. So for those of you who would be leaving the commission, if you have some friends who you think should come and join us, or for those of you on the commission and have other committee members who you think would be a great fit, please let them know to keep an eye out. And when it gets close to being posted, I will definitely send it out to everybody as a reminder.
Great. Any commissioners have announcements?
I just have a quick question for Tamiko. Are all of the commission positions on the same calendar, or is our commission different from other commissions? So will the council put out a call for vacancies?
Yes, I think the term limits are across with other commissions as well. So they will put a call out for whatever ones have openings and then hopefully make those vacancies go away and fill up the commissions again.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Marigo?
So just an update on Natalie Corona Splash Pad. They're actually doing a build this coming up Tuesday with there's community members and people from the commission, not commission, but who's on the panel to be able to actually go and paint the tiles that are going to go up there. So they did it. The family did it up in Arbuckle 6 months ago, maybe. I think it was something like that. They brought it down for us to do. I think they did with the first responders. They also did it with them, so now we're doing it here. So looking forward to that.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
And we're I still think target date for June, late June.
For completion, maybe not for opening, but for completion, yeah.
Completion.
Great. Any other commissioners have announcements?
Just that I went by the shade structure at Aurora Park. Looks great. I'm really impressed. It looks like it'll last a long time. A lot of people were using it when I was there, and that was during the week. So,
Perfect.
And just one question, the fire at one of the pickleball parks, was that the new one that we just did the grand opening on?
But
No.
it was in phase 1, right?
Yeah, it was phase 1.
So newish.
No.
Yeah, only a couple of years old.
Which park was that?
Chestnut.
Okay, that's what I thought it was, because that's right by where we are, and I thought I saw it, but I wasn't sure.
What's the
can I ask
repair
you a question?
horizon
Yeah,
on
that's
that?
what I was gonna ask.
So right now, I'm working with a contractor who actually completed phase 1 to come out and give us an assessment of what he thinks the fix will be. So not just the surface was damaged, but the subsurface was also damaged. There was a plastic can that was melted to the court. And so when we attempted to take that off, the court had already been damaged. It looked like whoever had set the fire had tried to remove it, but it ripped the top layer of that court off. And so it actually peeled about maybe 4 or 5 inches of subsurface out as well. So we don't know if that's gonna require them to just cut out that section and redo that patch, or if they're gonna have to do a whole makeover of that core. So right now, I'm waiting for them to come out to give us that assessment. They've let me know that this week sometime, but they haven't given me a concrete date, so I'm still waiting for them. I have put in 3 calls to them, however, so I am pushing the issue.
I just have one question about that. You're probably gonna say no, but the other court is not usable while that court's not playable.
Only because of the safety issue that the other court poses, because it is, it's a tripping hazard out there, and then there's still the debris out there, so that's why we have the whole thing locked down.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, great. Anyone else? No
Janet,
comments?
did you have any?
I do have something.
Okay, go ahead. Staff has been busy gearing up for junior basketball, which they are going through coaches training this week, and practice can start on Monday. First games start January 25th. We're very excited. And also just a reminder that the grand opening for the patio at the senior center is tomorrow from 3 to 5.
Are the junior basketball teams as full as they were last year? Just off the, I don't need numbers, I don't need statistics. Just generally speaking. Oh, okay. Well, just out of curiosity, what does our enrollment look like?
So we are full, and we're at 484 participants.
Oh,
That's great.
That's great.
That's a lot of kids.
And I believe we had 7 of those are our scholarship kids that we offered for free registrations that we didn't participate.
Is Montgomery fielding teams again? Is that part of the, okay, great.
The ages, what are the ages for the junior basketball?
It's 3rd grade through 6th grade.
Great. All right. Anyone else? No? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 4, public comment. So the public comments section is for the commission to receive comments, except for brief questions, clarification. No discussion or action items may be taken on any item that is not listed on the agenda. During the public comment, a member of the public may address the commission on matters not listed on the agenda and are listed on the consent calendar. If possible, please reserve your comments for regular matters listed on the agenda at the time that the item is considered by the commission. Speakers will be asked to line up at the podium and state their name for the record. Comments are limited to no more than 3 minutes per speaker. Do we have any public comments? Okay. No public comment, so we're going to move to item number 5, the consent calendar. So all the matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine, non-controversial, require no discussion, and are expected to have unanimous support. The consent calendar will be enacted by one motion. Commissioners may request items be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. I just realized something on our agenda. There's no place for approval of minutes. Is that in the consent portion? Okay. Okay, so with that being said, I'm sorry, it's right here below. Staff, do you guys want to present anything off the consent calendar at all? All right. I just did have one small thing, page on, what's this page? I think it's page 9. It's the minutes from, hold on if my computer wants to respond. Minutes from October 16th. It's not a big deal, but my last name has an S on it. That's it.
I see it on both, actually.
Okay.
So I will change that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments or discussion? Go ahead. Commissioner LaFleur.
Yeah, I was just looking for wording clarification on, it looks like page 3 from the September 18th minutes. On that top paragraph, I read it, and honestly, I had a hard time following what we were doing there or what our comment was. Is there somebody on staff that could just kind of put that into a baser English? I just find the way it was worded, it was hard to follow.
About the walking tour?
This is commission feedback, remove steps 3 and 4. This was off of B, consider council subcommittee proposed process to place tasks, items on commission agendas.
Yes.
So there was the recommendation, provide feedback. Then on the next page, our feedback was remove these steps 3 and 4. Then it just goes on the process. And honestly, I had a hard time following as worded. I'm wondering if you could just clarify what we commented on.
Sure. So through the discussion, it was recommended to remove those steps. And I think at different times said, like, I numbered them as 1, 2, 3, 4 in that section. But steps 3 and 4 are step C on the diagram that was given to us with the council subcommittee recommendations, which was to remove recommend approval, do not recommend approval, and then to send to city council as informational and suggest modifications. So the things in the parentheses were the steps 3 and 4 that were requested or stated as recommended to be removed.
Okay. And then as the paragraph goes on, could you continue clarifying?
So other feedback was just basically summarized from what the commissioners had said, is to consider the value and expertise of the Rec and Park commissioners and the discussion and relevant topics. If the topic is discussed by other commissions and have impact on parks and community services, it should also be discussed here at the Rec and Park Commission. And another comment was clarification on roles for community engagement by commission members. So remember, they had this was the subcommittee's recommendations for things to be placed on agenda. And then this was just soliciting feedback from the commissioners so that way they could make modifications to their final document. And so this was just kind of your running feedback to be able to give back to them. And then the subcommittee and the clerk's office, or city manager's office, was going to make the changes or updates to the process.
Okay, that's definitely running feedback.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? If nobody has any other comments, can somebody please make a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar
A second?
Great,
with the change suggested by our chair.
great. And seconded, Commissioner Murray-Gill. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Okay, motion passes 5-0. We'll go ahead and move on to item number 6. We're gonna start off by, Dave, I think you're gonna do an introduction for the DYSA batting cages installation.
Yes.
Thanks.
The department has received a proposal from DYSA to construct and install a batting cage at Community Park Lit, adjacent to the field there. This addition would provide a valuable new resource for the softball community, filling a current gap as there are no similar amenities available at that location. For several years, Community Park has served informally as DYSA's home complex, and this proposed enhancement would further strengthen its value to the organization by offering softball players a dedicated space to practice their batting skills in a safe and enclosed environment. Funded and constructed entirely by DYSA, the project will adhere to the city's standard construction processes, including thorough review and permitting. PCS staff have evaluated the proposal and anticipate no significant impacts to the park, and the department fully supports the project. So with that, I will turn this over to DYSA President Chris Sinclair.
Great, thank you, Dave.
Thank you all. Chris Sinclair, DYSA President. Never been in front of a Parks Commission before, so I don't exactly know what you all are looking for, if it's an open dialogue or if you want me to further go into, why it's important to the girls and community for these batting cages to be installed in Community Park. I think the biggest thing, and with city staff, we've been working hard to close the equity gap Davis Little League right across the street for years, has had a enclosed field. They've had a snack bar. They've had multiple batting cages. They've had multiple fields with lights. Through work with the city of Davis, we now have access to lit. It's been a huge benefit to the girls. They can extend their practice times, especially in winter months when it gets dark at 5:15. And so I just think this is the next step in providing some equity between DYSA and Davis Little League. There's over 300 girls that participate in our spring rec program, and then there's another 50 to 60 girls who participate in our competitive teams. And then at the same time, there's roughly 30 to 40 girls who would be able to utilize this as well, who participate at Davis Senior High School, whether it's through the JV or varsity teams. So I don't know if you all have any questions or would like
Great.
further comment?
Yeah, thank you for the background. I think we'll open up to commissioners for comments and questions for
I just had a real quick question. Your comment about the high school, I wasn't aware. Do the high school teams utilize that ball field there?
So the JV team has, I believe, an MOU on the field, and so they have it typically Monday through Friday between 4 and 6:30. So it's an agreement where we, share that. Historically, DYSA hasn't had access to it. Something we've worked with city staff to change, just to add additional fields, for girls to participate in softball, and especially with the lights. The lights is a huge thing that we haven't had access to, and so over the last couple of years, we've been given that. So they do use it.
Thank you.
anyone else? Yeah, Commissioner Marigo. I'm sorry, the floor.
We look so much alike. I also just thought you had something to say.
I do.
So, okay. Go ahead, sorry.
So I'm just looking at the aerial map, and it looks like it's in a pretty high-profile area. I was just wondering about existing circulation patterns, and is there any impact to other users in the area?
So why we selected right down the right field line, there is a grass area. It's kind of wedged in between community pool and the right field fence. That grass area isn't, we're out there all the time. It's not used for anything in particular. If a team's on the field practicing and you have another one waiting, maybe they'll use that to warm up. But there's not a lot of foot traffic, and that's also why, working with Deanne and Dave, we thought that a 20 by 100 foot, like a longer cage, is better than a 40 by 50, so it protrudes less out into that grassy area and kind of hugs the right field fence line area, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
I would add to that, as far as like recreational value, like that would be the term we would use. It's not programmed for any sort of recreational activity, for example. And then of course it doesn't impede where bikes would be traveling and sort of the natural walking.
And the surface there is just sod?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Commissioner Redmond.
Just have a comment. That location is perfect. My granddaughter did softball from 3rd to 6th grade. I'm thrilled that they're actually going to get a place where they can practice batting. That's a real need for that age.
Yep.
And probably older too, so that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Marigo.
You're about 10 years too late, because my daughter's past that already.
Well, I got 4 daughters, so better late than never.
More daughters.
No, I'm done with that.
Still time.
So obviously the high school has their one that's over kind of under the trees behind
Yep.
the varsity field. You have it 20 by, I read it's 20 by 100. Are you looking at having where two different players can be at the same time?
Yeah, so we really wanted to try to get more than one batting cage in there. Just more use, and that area wasn't really used for anything, like Deanne said. And so what we were gonna have is 2 separate cages, both 18 foot by 50. So they'll butt up to one another, and so then you could have 2 teams or 2 groups, one pitching, one hitting, both hitting, and just enclosed, a little bit safer.
And I did read that you guys are gonna put it in, because my worry is just when people aren't using it and just vandalism and
Correct.
whatnot. Is it using a net that's movable, or?
So the idea behind this was to actually have it fenced in, like gated in, you know, nice fence screen, lattice. If you're familiar with the one over by Varsity field, that the Varsity field that anyone can use, the biggest issue, you know, is that it gets vandalized, it gets cut. They've had that net stolen multiple times. They're about $2,500 per net. You know, obviously the high school team doesn't have a lot of funds, excess funds, and so it's, you know, it's no good if it's not there. So we felt, you know, closing it would prolong the life of it, reduce vandalism.
And then are you looking at putting electricity in for pitching machines, or not, for a pitching machine to a hitter?
So currently at ComLit, we have generators. So for opening day, you know, if we're having microphones or music or things like that, we use a generator. Speaking with Dave, we're looking at, there obviously is electricity there with the lights. There's 2 light poles there, and we don't know if they're actual power at the base of those poles or if they're solar cells. And so that's something, you know, if the project progresses, that we would investigate.
And then are you looking at taking out the turf that's there and putting in something else?
So the turf, well, the grass area would be, you know, taken out, and it would be a concrete slab.
Concrete.
Yeah.
So
Okay, go ahead.
Getting back to the cage, as far as the aesthetics, so, I think you mentioned it's gonna be made of lattice. I mean, aren't these typically like a cyclone fence material?
Yeah, very similar to what right and left field would be constructed of.
And what would that
Which is
be?
cyclone fencing.
Cyclone fencing?
Yeah.
And would it be just the basic industrial gray, or would you do the black, or have you gone to that point?
No, I mean, I would think we would want to match
Yeah.
the
aesthetically.
look.
Yeah, so the idea would be having to parallel what is already out there existing with the cyclone fencing out there, so it would be the same color as what's out there.
And so that color is?
It's like a,
Aluminum gray.
yeah, it's basically stainless steel,
Yeah.
but it's not the polished stainless steel. It's
Oh, okay.
galvanized, thank you, that was the word I was looking for.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
I think that was, my questions were about security and not having things stolen. I know that you guys have suffered from shed break-ins before and things like that, so I just
Yeah, I
wanna
mean-
make sure that.
3 weeks ago, every container was broken into.
Great.
So we put different locks on to try to deter that. Davis Senior High School shed over there, they had a generator stolen. There was a homeless person living in the container. So softball's kicking back up, people were, you know, in the park, so that was you know, luckily a coach found that.
Went in there
And not a
instead.
player,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's definitely a lot of foot traffic in there, and vandalism would occur if it wasn't secure.
Yeah, and my concern too is like, it's off the, like, parking lots and things like that, and that area right behind the pool area does get dark, and
Very dark.
like, you know, people can wander in there and find things they're not supposed to, so.
Yeah, people always scream when we shut the lights off too early.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, just like light
They're on their
and
walk and-
Dark, yeah,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, you know, my daughter obviously played softball for a short period of time, but she enjoyed it, and we really value, like, being a girl mom, I value DYSA and what the contributions are to the community. So I can speak for myself when I say that I fully support your project, and I look forward to seeing it actually come to life, but I don't know if others have some sort of sentiment to say as well, if they so choose. No? Okay.
Just one more question.
Oh, go ahead.
And then, I don't know if I saw it in the report or not, but what's your timeline? So I think this needs to go in front of the city council, and then assuming approval, what are you thinking?
So I mean, it's, you know, gets busy over there during the springtime, so I don't know if, you know, construction-wise could be done, but we would want to start this, you know, in the springtime and hopefully have it completed, you know, as early as possible. Spring rec is our busiest rec season, and practices will commence on the week of the 21st of February. So the sooner we get it in, you know, the more use it'll get this year. So that would be our goal. you know, we have to identify a contractor, you know, obviously we gotta go through the approval steps. But yeah, so I mean, it's something, we have the funds set aside for it, so it's something that we would like to do as soon as possible.
We intend to take it to council next Tuesday.
Okay.
Great.
Oh, you're looking for this, like this spring?
Yeah.
That's ambitious. This is.
It's private, it's not public.
I was gonna say,
It's a little bit different.
Yeah. It's one luxury.
All right, well, if we don't have any further questions, thank you for coming and providing a report to us. That's
All right.
great.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Nathan, you want to open for public comment in case there isn't any?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Any public comment? No? Okay. You're just visiting?
Yep.
Great, okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move to item B, review the draft needs assessment and strategic plan. This is not an action item, it's just informational, so I'm gonna turn it over to city staff to kind of walk us through and maybe point out some highlights and we can follow up with discussion.
Yeah, perfect. Glad to. We'll try to keep it as high level as possible. I mean, it's 150 plus pages of information, plus the exhibits, and so it's a lot to get through. So we've summarized some notes here that we'll run through tonight. But we're really excited, to bring this forward. It's been a long time in the making. It is definitely a once in a career kind of report, for sure. It is certainly once in a commissioner's tenure sort of report too. So it is something noteworthy that I think we can all say we've made it to the end on. And just for, to jog the memory, funds were set aside for this back in 2021. Council really was gracious and allocated $250,000 for this study, which, my guess is if it made it to the top in 2021, this was already in discussion years before that. And we had not undertaken a comprehensive study of the department and our operations and the needs since 2012. So it's definitely was long overdue then. We did not actually pick up steam with the project until we had kind of a full turnover of the leadership staff, which is the composition that you see here today, and that was in 2023. So this really kicked off in the summer of 2023, if we can remember back then. And so we've been at this for, diligently over the past year and a half, and it feels like, kind of writing a thesis, and, you kind of give birth to that, and you're like, okay, here we are, this is a special day. So, we're really grateful for your guys' review of this. We're really grateful for your support and your patience, because it has seemed like we kept saying, we're working on the needs assessment, and really we have been. It just takes a really long time. And also we're very grateful to our staff for their input on it, and for the community taking the time to fill out our surveys, to come to our events and give us their feedback, which directly inspired the plan and will help us be able to achieve the things we want to achieve going forward. Before we launch into the high-level findings, I think it is important to kind of expectation set and kind of scope set, because there tends to be a general use of term master plan and needs assessment, and those are two very different types of projects. And so I've heard those terms used kind of interchangeably in the past at commission, and we've even, I think, done that in the past. But it is important to define each, and really the needs assessment is using data, right, to gain sort of analytical insight into what our gaps in services are, gaps in our operational and sort of logistical side, and what our needs are forecasted off of the inventory piece of the study, which we'll talk about. So it's really data-driven, and then it can inform a master plan, which is much more strategic. The horizon on that is generally much longer.
And it usually has things in that such as park prototypes, you know, it really is talking about the whole park system and ecosystem, and that's not what this report was. So I did want to bring that up because there may have been some sort of surprise in reading this and going, okay, but I'm not seeing a lot about sort of climate resiliency or turf types and things of that nature. It really was not the intent of this report. It was really to figure out where are we missing the mark, or what areas aren't we addressing, how can we do better, and what things we should be focusing on informed by the data. So the deliverables for this assessment included the following. So an internal department-focused survey to gauge employee well-being and organizational culture. That was the first thing. And then several internal meetings to create a new mission statement and logo. And then an external community survey and several in-person outreach efforts to get survey feedback, which we'll discuss further. And amenity inventory for 20 parks. Those 20, we can kind of talk about how we chose those, but essentially they're our most significantly programmed parks, and our parks with the most amenities in them. And that included GIS coordinates for all of those parks and the amenities in those parks. And of course, a condition assessment of each of those amenities. And then an analysis of our programming data. And so I think it is helpful to break the report down into kind of 4 main sections. The internal focused piece, which is the mission and the organization. And then we have the external piece, which is, of course, about the community, which is broken down further by parks and by programming. And then thirdly, we have the inventory piece, which tells us, okay, what is the capital outlay expected to be over the next decade? And then finally, a discussion about how do we begin to address the outlay, right? How do we begin to get $14.7 million? Which is why you guys are here to help us. Okay, so the internal piece, we'll start there. The DUDEC team, if you recall, DUDEC was our consultant, and they had a couple of different sub-consultants on the team as well, but we'll just be referring to them as DUDEC. They kicked off the assessment by scheduling several internal meetings with our staff. We helped the consultant team develop an anonymous employee survey that got sent to all of our employees. It was, the purpose, of course, of that survey and those in-person meetings was to get a sense of general job satisfaction, organizational culture, barriers to providing services, if any. And as it states in the report, overall, the surveys revealed that staff, continue to feel motivated by their jobs, that they pride themselves on the quality of work that they do feel a connection to what they do. But that being said, the survey did reveal concerns about staffing ratios, which I can say is a consistent finding, has been a consistent finding in previous studies too. That is not unusual. So staffing ratios, especially on the park side. Upward mobility, right? So the ability to, kind of stay with the department and move up in your career, and then competitive pay for the job done. And I'll note that these findings from the surveys, so most of that was sort of garnered from the anonymous surveys, which makes sense, right? We wanted to make sure people feel comfortable with being honest. But those were gathered prior to the City Council's most recent adoption of the salary table, which did augment staff salaries across the board. I mean, not every single classification, but many people did see an adjustment to their salary, which may now, retrospectively affect that comment. It wasn't probably for all of our classifications in the department, but for some. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out. For park staff, there was a specific mention of concerns regarding the transition to electrical equipment, which we have discussed, here at commission. And, Dave can expand on this later, but there have been challenges with that transition, and we would expect there to be challenges, right? Everything from budgeting appropriately for batteries, which is an entire discussion in and of itself, to the logistical constraints, how many batteries can we carry realistically without injuring ourselves, How quick can we use those tools compared to gas-powered tools? And lastly, one of the findings consistent across both sides was a need for a revised mission statement. It is unclear, how long the previous mission statement had been around, but it was clear that there was a bit of disconnect with the one that was existing, and we felt that it was time, particularly with the kind of full turnover of the leadership staff, to come together and workshop a new one. So after many months of workshopping with staff, we arrived at the following mission statement. So I'm going to say it. Our mission is to be stewards of memories through engaging recreational programs, community connection, and parks that promote relaxation and play. It's simple, to the point, heartfelt, genuine. I mean, really kind of got to the core of why we do what we do and why we maintain the spaces we maintain. So we're very happy with that. So that pretty much sums up the internal part, which really got at, kind of how are we moving and grooving internally. The external piece was really the critical piece here, right, which is the community-facing component. Really that got at the community's priorities for our services and our parks, the things that people want to see in our parks. Specifically questions around what we aren't currently providing, any barriers to accessibility to our programs, and any amenities we should be prioritizing going forward. And I want to make that real clear, like this is, basically an indictment from the community, like this is, if we had the budget, this is how we would want it to be spent and in this order. And so we'll go over that. The consultant team used a mixed methodology to get the survey circulated. It was both in-person survey that was given out and also an electronic survey. It was circulated to all of our past and present program participants, all of our co-sponsor groups, all of the local athletic groups, many special interest groups. We have a Word document that's very long. Is it 97 groups? Including, DDBA and the Rotary and so forth. So, I mean, really not just sticking with people that we're typically interacting with, but really tried to cast that net as far as we could. And in addition to that, the survey link was shared on our city's Facebook, on our social media, and of course, we asked all commissioners to share that as well. And in line with, I think our previous efforts to meet people where they are, as shown through some of our new programming efforts, the consultant team attended various in-person events that we knew are highly attended. So the farmer's market, the turkey trot, went to Montgomery Elementary, the bridge program at pickup time to try to talk to parents, and even a local festival. Paper surveys, as I mentioned, were also administered and collected at the senior center and at all of those public events that I just mentioned. And in totality, we received 843 survey responses, which is actually robust for a survey effort. Not only according to the consultants, but I used to do survey work, and I can tell you that that's not terrible. And they did point out, which was, I think, something important to point out, that it's not necessarily representative of 843 individuals, but of households, right? Because in many cases, not every household member was filling it out. It was one person per household filling it out on behalf of their household. So I like to kind of think about this as representing 843 households. And there was a little map that was put into that section, and the plotting of the respondents' addresses really suggests pretty good permeation throughout all of the city, which is nice. So you don't tend to see a lot of clustering in like West Davis, for example. It really shows that we were able to talk to and hear back from people from all over the city. The findings at kind of this high level is essentially that the community wants more sports and fitness programs, more outdoor adventure camps, more music and performing arts programs, and also over half of the folks that were surveyed want them to be held in the evenings or on the weekends, which is an actually important insight. I think that public entities can sometimes offer programs when it's convenient for the public entity to offer it, when public entities are working. But that is not necessarily, reflective of when people are available to take those programs. So that is something worth paying attention to, and we talk about that quite a bit as a staff team. When asked to rank the priority for program spending, the community first asked us to increase the variety of programming, then the amounts of programming, and again, more sports programming and improvements to our aquatics programming, which we can talk about in detail later, but I think that relates specifically to opening up the pools for more just recreational swimming and like lap swimming in particular. For parks, the community has ranked their priorities in the following way. So optimization and maintenance of our existing facilities over building new things, more shade structures, more sports field lighting, more lighting in the parks in general, maintenance of the sports courts, more seating, more sports courts, and more playgrounds. And a recurring theme really was investments into maintenance. We saw that quite a bit in taking care of our existing amenities and sports fields that are usable year-round, primarily related to lighting. And lastly, there was an overwhelming request for parks that cater to older kids, so like 8 and up or teenagers, including inclusive equipment. Speaking of teens, we actually did do a specific survey effort for teens. We were able to get feedback from over 72 teens. That survey was not the same survey that was deployed to the rest of the community because the community survey was quite extensive. I mean, I think it was like 4 to 5 pages long. The teen survey was very brief. I think it had like 5 or 6 questions, really talking about what kind of programs would you like to see, where would you like to see them? And so they rank ordered their feedback and were really interested in career internships, outdoor adventure camps, sports, and cooking. And again, a common theme throughout both surveys was sort of this lack of awareness of our programs. So them folks just not knowing what programs we offer and just not having a sense of awareness of that. So that is a key insight for us. And really as our demographics shift and change, particularly with more seniors, we will have to be considering these strategies to increase awareness of our offerings. The report has, a real extensive data section where the consultant team analyzed over 5 years of programming data. And, of course, we're not going to cover it all tonight, but some of the key insights were that program participation has more than doubled in the past 5 years. And I think there's some anomalies with that, mostly because of the pay-by-day activities, but we'll take it. By age, youth are the largest participant group, and that's, we kind of figured that. But again, some of this is, you may know something anecdotally, but it is nice to be able to substantiate it with the data. In the past few years, more programs have become moderately enrolled. So the percentage of programs with 80 to 100% enrollment have decreased, but so have the percentage of programs with less than 10%. And about 13% of households in Davis participate in recreation programs. So those are some key takeaways there. One of the significant deliverables, as I mentioned earlier with the plan, was the park inventory piece. And this thing, it was a labor of love. This thing took a long, long time. And some of you know because you have participated in various inventory efforts over the years. Given the budget constraints with the project and our vast park system, we had to prioritize. We basically only had enough money to do 20 out of the 41 parks. And so that had us prioritize, okay, what are the 20 parks that are the most programmed and filled with the most amenities so we can have the most realistic idea of what we will need to maintain the parks going forward. So as we move through the discussion regarding the maintenance and the capital needs, just know that really is representative of 50% of the parks, right? As you may recall from previous discussions, here, one of the purposes was to establish the GPS-based system that could be uploaded into our asset management system. So right now, we are not using an asset management system, okay? This inventory accomplished that objective and has provided us with the coordinates for those parks and the coordinates of the amenities in those parks with a condition assessment, so that now, going forward, we can actually conduct preventative maintenance activities and go, oh, looks like we've been out to work on this bench 4 times. Maybe time to, you know, and then we can set benchmarks of like, okay, every year we have to do this with these amenities, go check on them. And as we know, preventative maintenance is always much cheaper than a replacement scenario down the road. So it does, of course, extend the life cycle of our amenities. So we are happy about that. In addition to the GIS component, the inventory involved a condition assessment. So this was everything from the concrete, with the exception of the bike paths, which we do not maintain, those are maintained through Public Works, to our pools, to the bathrooms, playgrounds, benches, garbage cans, I mean, really everything, but like, we had to determine how granular was going to be helpful to us. And I think we stopped at trash cans. I think that was sort of the arbitrary. That was
Trash cans were in or out?
Oh, I think trash cans are in, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
All right.
The condition assessment attributed a rating scale to each of the amenities and the associated replacement value. And lower scores mean like a worse condition, and a more immediate replacement. You'll see there's a column for immediate replacement, 0 to 2 years, 3 to 5 years, so on and so forth. Higher scores mean better and a longer horizon. And I'll note too that, and this is very important too, for the replacement cost, it did include an inflator for the years down the road, right? Because today's 1 million is, you know, in 10 years going to be much more. So as you can see through just a brief review of the inventory section, we're looking at $14.7 million in repair and replacement demands in the next 10 years in those 20 parks. And again, that does not account for any new projects. So when you get a sports court that's broke down, you know, it doesn't account for taking care of vandalism, for example, nor does it account for the other 20 parks, as I said. Now, again, those are smaller parks, and in those parks are a few trash cans and a few benches, but it is, you know, let's just keep that in mind. A large portion of the repair and replacement demands are aquatics related. I would say at least 3 to 4 million in that outlay are aquatics related, followed by various playground replacements, and then picnic area amenities, so the shade structures. So I would say the biggest sort of costly items here are for sure going to be the aquatics related items, full playground replacements because they're end of life cycle, and then like the shade structures around picnic amenities. Lastly, the plan concludes with a discussion regarding our existing partnerships, suggestions for new partnerships, existing funding streams, and ideas for new funding. Now, regarding the funding, the plan specifically addresses our basic funding streams, which include the general fund, which subsumed in that, includes monies from the park maintenance tax, Quimby fees, which are more colloquially known as park in lieu fees, and development impact fees. In addition to those streams, we have access to grant funds, but we don't like to rely on them per se, right? Those are on a case-by-case basis, and in that, for example, we have access to the Community Development Block Grant, which the city does get as an entitlement community. We do get CDBG dollars every year, but again, that pot, we may not be able to access, you know, the whole pot or even a part of the pot, depending on sort of the larger issues that need to be addressed in the city at any given time. And lastly, of course, we're one of the few city departments that actually generate revenue. So fees do help to offset our funding demands. And ideally, we want at least a portion of our programs to be as cost neutral or as self-sustaining as possible. The plan does provide several funding recommendations, and I'm not going to go over all of them tonight, but I would say that the really important ones worth talking about are a fee study, And that's to ensure that our fees are in line with our revenue and pricing policy. And the last update to that hasn't been done since 2016. And so, of course, a lot has changed in almost 10 years in terms of prices of things. And we do augment for CPI, but we haven't really looked holistically at sort of the entire market of things in almost a decade. And we need to do that to ensure that we're not subsidizing programs beyond what we're supposed to and authorized to according to our revenue and pricing policy, right? So are we taking programs that are supposed to be totally recreational, like not life skill, and we're like 150% subsidizing them? What's going on with that? And we'll be bringing forward some projects in the future that get at this specific piece there to try and improve that. Second, a development impact fee study. So to ensure we're collecting enough there, and that's a little bit more complicated. Not a little bit, it's fairly complicated because it is connected actually to our general plan, the city's general plan, and the general plan update is actually now underway. So there is a chance now that with the update of the general plan, there could be modifications and increases to the development impact fee study. Thirdly, a parks bond measure, right? So that's not atypical for cities to pursue when there are large investments that are required, which I think this study shows. And then lastly, further explorations of the private-public sort of leasing model that we have at Community Pool, right? Or other similar types of partnerships where we're looking at private entities who may already be using the space to help sort of offload some of the funding demands there. So overall, you know, we're really appreciative of the findings in the assessment. We feel like it positions us well for the future, right? Because it helps us understand where we're at right now. It helps to sort of recalibrate expectations about the status of our operations in general. And, you know, I'll say that something that we've been very passionate about from the beginning is that, you know, the assessment is not an action-oriented document in of itself. It can very well just kind of sit and gather dust, and that is not something that certainly our department wants to see occur. And so to ensure that that is not what happens here, and with that underpinning and understanding, we developed a strategic plan, which is kind of this companion document that lives with the needs assessment. And what the strategic plan does is takes all of these findings from the needs assessment and kind of translates them over into that action-oriented document that says, okay, here are the goals, kind of culled from the needs assessment, and further breaks that down into objectives and into tasks with staff assigned to the task with a timeline. And we, you know, we've attached a very high-level draft of the strategic plan with the report tonight. We do not have the version totally nailed down with the objectives and the tasks quite yet, and we're looking for feedback for objectives and tasks that Commission would like to contribute to it. So it's definitely a working document, but what we do want to do is take the opportunity to, once it's created, bring that document back on maybe a quarterly basis or something of that nature to talk to the Commission, show the Commission, look, here are the sort of updates to the strategic plan, here's where we're at, and it just, we feel like that's a good model of transparency and will help us measure our successes related to the implementation of the needs assessment. So with that in mind, we provided the high-level document that has the various goals. I'll read through the goal statements broadly, and then we'll open it up for any feedback. So for the strategic plan, our first goal was the goal of community, and with that was the statement of strengthening community engagement by creating more inclusive, accessible opportunities for diverse participation through strategic partnerships and the reduction of barriers to participation. And that kind of gets at, you know, offering things when people can take them and making sure we're, you know, aware of the changing demographics. We aim to develop and implement programs that are reflective of and responsive to the diverse needs of the community. 2, funding. As good stewards of public funds, we need to optimize resource allocation and maximize revenue streams through active and intentional management of budget. 3, sustainability and resiliency. Ensure that infrastructure is sustainable through routine and preventative maintenance. Promote resiliency to the effects of climate change on our landscapes and our programs. Be proactive to the changing needs of the community. 4, technology. Implement platforms that increase productivity through analytics and reporting. Commit to using technology to its fullest capacity. And you'll note, and I didn't mention it here, but there was a discussion in the data section about some weaknesses there, about how we collect data currently, which has prohibited us from actually being fully able to realize kind of what's going on with program data. And so that technology piece speaks to that. And lastly, culture. Promote a culture that values creative collaboration and effective communication. Encourage professional development, coaching, and mentorship, and build a leadership bench of diverse and capable successors. So again, we have workshopped many objectives that fall beneath each of these goals. It's just not in its final form yet, so we didn't want to bring it tonight, but we will definitely be bringing back the version that has the objectives and then further defined very specific tasks that are assigned either to work groups or actual individuals with associated timelines. And some of those timelines are, a month, some of them will take a year, but at any rate, the idea is to start making that list and crossing off items in the list. That's all we have.
Are you sure that's it?
Yeah, I'm sure that's it.
Just checking. Well, great job. I know that's been a labor of love, and there's a lot of good information that comes out of it. And I think it's, great going forward to be able to do a strategic plan based on the gaps and needs that we need. So with that, I'll open it for commissioner comments. Go ahead.
I'll start at the end. The 5th goal you mentioned in the strategic plan, it wasn't clear to me, is that speaking to the community or is that speaking internally to the Recreation and Parks Commission team?
Oh, that was, I think, more of an internal focused item coming from that first part of the needs assessment where we, learned about some of the desires of our staff and so forth. So it was really, what is the culture of the Parks and Community Services Department? But I can see that, of course, it all resonates outwardly too. So if we are, reflecting a collaborative environment internally, right, that has an outward effect. But yeah, it's really internal.
Yeah, I certainly read into some of that as being, I guess this could apply outward to the community as well. You might tweak that a bit just to be clear, because the strategic plan is a mixture of outward and inward facing goals.
Yes.
That's the way I read it,
Mhm,
so,
mhm.
great.
Yep.
All right, anyone else? Go ahead.
I wanted to say I really appreciated the quality of this plan. I've worked with DUDEC in the past in state parks, and this certainly is indicative of what I've seen, and so well done, and it's very comprehensive. I would note that, although I didn't read it word for word, I did scan through the entire document, and my eye kept, this is what I do, but my eye kept hanging up on typos. So there are indiscriminate typos, things that are in plural that should be singular. So, before they get to a final, if DUDEC could have somebody sit down and just go back on that, that would just enhance it. And one thing that did catch my eye on in the plan about midway, section 5.2.3, it's provision of recreational facilities and programs by private entities. They basically just had a paragraph narrative that talked about some of the other activities that happen in Davis, and they are significant. And I was wanting a chart or an addendum or something that maybe talk more to, make more of an attempt to inventory some of those other activities that are provided by those private entities. And they listed a number of them. It'd be helpful if there could be some estimate of numbers of participants that are served by these providers. And there's a wide range out there. I mean, one of the things I think about when I go out the Costco highway is that go-kart track that's out there. I guess that's the old city dump, and then right next door there's some kind of a paintball thing. Those are all recreational activities. So I guess it would help paint a picture for me of what is the greater recreational product that's being served here, and I think it is considerable, especially for a city that's of this moderate size. So I don't know if this is something that, maybe something that might be more of a staff assignment, just as a separate report, but I just personally, this is the way I think, I would find it helpful to have a much bigger picture of what else is going on in the city. Oh, and one more thing on, I'm also aware that, I think they mentioned dance, so that we can all think of private providers of dance, but not wanting to get in this realm too much, but I know there are a lot of church-based recreational activities, programming and like that are provided that provide a service to youth in particular, but to a lot of folks, So, anyway, take it for what it is.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Reagan.
So, my first time reading a report of this size, I was like, did they get paid by the page? I'm going through this, I'm like.
Hey, $250,000.
All right, yes, this is the thing, I'm like, okay, it's not something that I'm used to now, I'll put it out there. It was very extensive, there's no doubt about that, but it seemed there was a lot of repetitiveness in it. Almost seemed, I would read back and then I was like, I thought I read this before, and I thought I read it before, and I actually did control find to see how many times things were in there. I'm like, oh, all right, it was multiple times. I did read through, I want to say the majority of it, to go into three things that hit me, or four things that hit me, were on page 66. Should I go by page?
Sure.
Okay. You put down, it was in the report, it was participation that doubled in the last 5 years. That hit me weird because the next few lines it talked about how that the kids are going, there's less kids in Davis than there was, I'm going to say 15 years ago. And I found that now if they have the data there, that's one thing, but it didn't seem right because my girls grew up here when Davis was growing. Now it seems like it's going back down. And I just didn't see how participation doubled within 5 years. I'd be curious to see what doubled in there, and I didn't see the data for that. Second thing was going back a little bit, page 28. Over the long term, the city and its voters should consider a tax measure for a parks bond utility percentage of transient occupancy tax generating revenue. I mean, obviously, we already have the parks tax. It was voted on how many years ago? The decision was made not to increase it over the existing thing other than the COLA that goes through there, called COLA. Their inflationary going there, but that was thought about, and that was determined that we're not going to raise that parks tax. So to have it in the report saying, hey, we should go and look at another parks tax, I struggle with something to even mention something like that because it was in there, the decision was made, and the voters passed it, and we're going to go back to the voters again and say, hey, we need more park tax. That, I struggle with that, but I struggle with any tax. So I'll put that out there. The other one on page 69 was talking about teen space, and there's really no teen space. I agree that there is no dedicated teen space right now, but I also look at, and what you said, Deanne, that they want more activities on teens. But when I think of teens, I'm gonna think of probably junior high and high schoolers. That's more involved with the schools than it is through the programs of the city. The city I see is more younger, and then coming into junior high and high school, there's a lot going on there. Now, summertime, a little bit different, but teens they're a hard one because they want to say they want to do stuff, and then it's there for them, and then they don't do it. So, I mean, raising two girls that go through that, I'm kind of like, all right, you guys do what you want to do, and that just, do we want to have a dedicated space to teens? I struggle with that just because raising two teen girls, I'm like, would they have gone to that? Because they're like, no, Dad, I'm not going to go to that. That's where the dumb kids go or whatever. It's just, I don't know. It just, that one, I was like, okay, there's not there. I mean, we have the teen center, what's now the bike thing, and I'm assuming the reason it was moved over to the bike Hall of Fame is because the teen center wasn't utilization. So, it seems, I don't know, there's a double-edged sword on that. And the last one that caught my eye on this was page 76. It says the city contracts with the Yolo County Probation Department. I've never heard you talk about that, Dave. I'm curious to know, is that something that happens?
Yeah, so we contract with them, we renew the contract yearly with them, and basically, they work in areas where we have a great need, so a lot of the work that's done, Pewter Creek Trail, a lot of weed abatement that's done out there, Playfields Park, anywhere where we determine there's a significant need that our staff are not able to handle, and that it needs to be handled pretty quickly, we have Yolo County come out and help us, and so they actually give us that assistance a couple days a week.
The last thing I'll have is, I mean, it's a very comprehensive report and written. My worry is, being that it's, 100 pages, let's call it, that who's really gonna read this? Other than the folks in the Parks Department, you guys are gonna read it, we read it here, who's really gonna look at this? And I look at, when I served on the grand jury, we wrote this 70-page report. They bound it up, sent it to us, and I have it in my bookcase saying, hey, that's the year I was on it. And I bet you not one other person's read it, than those people. So I worry about, yes, it's great to write this report and have it all in there, but maybe almost some executive summaries for each section on it, just to say where we really want to go with it, because it just seems completely overwhelming to somebody that sits down and reads it, and they're like, they get through page 5, and they're like, I'm not going to get to page 9. That's what I heard.
Go ahead. I don't want to get in the weeds too much, but I'll mention a few things. I concur that the teens are an important component in our community. And from what I remember, because my daughter was a teen when the teen center was opened, and it just wasn't popular. I don't think it was used all that much. When I think of teens and what they want, what I sort of envision is maybe the city partnering with the schools. And what I mean by that is providing activities, but it would be on the school site. I think kids connect with their schools more than they do other places. And so that would be one thing I would encourage. I also think, and I know I've mentioned this before, I also think that we could have a much stronger partnership with the grade schools and the junior highs in using their spaces. One example is at junior high they have pickleball lines drawn. And I would love to see some pickleball classes for teens, and they could, and if we provide, and they have the nets, if we could, partnership with them and teach classes, on the weekend or in the evening for pickleball. And that would be one opportunity, and because it's at the school, I think that it might be more popular. Then I just had a question. I just have a couple questions. I know that Pioneer Park tennis courts were going to be redone. I don't see that scheduled. What would be the status for that?
That is going to be put into the next budget cycle, so the
Okay.
upcoming budget cycle, the next two-year budget.
Just,
Yeah, yeah.
people ask me stuff.
Yep.
Okay, so that would be possibly, is there a timeline? It would be budgeted, and then you wouldn't have a timeline for those courts being redone?
Not quite yet. I mean, first it needs to be, the budget needs to be authorized, and once
And that
that,
would be when?
June.
June, okay,
Yeah.
so maybe a year and a half, maybe?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And then I couldn't help but notice the cost of the bathroom in 20, you have a, you have that sort of schedule for 24, 26, the bathroom, I believe, at Community Park. And I couldn't believe the price. It was so similar to redoing all the sports courts at Walnut. And I just am curious as to, what am I missing?
It's actually cheaper
Yeah,
than it was supposed to be,
yeah.
Yeah,
so.
because the reason, because I was sort of looking, I told you I was going to look into bathroom vandalism and what we could do, and I'm still exploring that. But in my research, there was a bathroom that was going to be redone in San Francisco, and it was going to cost $1.7 million. And the community just was appalled by that. And they were lucky enough, there's a company who will provide these really cool self-cleaning bathrooms as long as they can advertise on the bathrooms. Or advertise in the bathrooms, or I'm not sure how it's done. We wouldn't probably qualify for that, but I don't assume anything. But I just think that's a really expensive bathroom.
Yes, public projects are quite expensive. I'm familiar with the San Francisco case. That, I believe, was a single stall in like one of the high traffic sort of, like, I don't know, it was Embarcadero or something like that.
It's a single stall.
Yeah, whereas of course this bathroom is like, what, five
it's,
toilets on either side plus a family.
Okay, so there's 5
Restroom on either side, so, you know, the men's side, women's side, and then we have a family plus the snack bar. But still, I mean, even considering all of those things, right, it is pricey. And this is a prefabricated unit also, which there are cost savings there too. So some of it are the site improvements that need to be made, including ADA work that needs to be done to connect the structure to a current like ADA pathway, so to ensure that there's proper access. But remember, that was one of the reasons why we selected the new site versus the old site, because trying to prepare the old site, both either in retrofitting the existing building or demolishing that and building something new is going to be like double what you see here. So, and then of course, there's always a contingency in the project. The contingency is generally somewhere, I think, in the 20% range. So the budget includes that contingency, and that is held until the project is complete, and then those funds are released if we do not need them. So, you know, there are occasions when we're lucky, when we don't have to dip into that contingency, and then the project comes in a little bit lower, but it is rare.
Okay, thank you for that. Then the other question I had was, it said that we partner with UC Davis, and the Butte Creek Camp is one of those partnerships. Are there others? I'd be really curious to know what those others are that we partner with UC Davis on. So it's just something I'd be interested in knowing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm unaware of any other existing partnerships, but I can tell you that regarding the, you know, we've talked about it here, the Inclusive Playground Project at Playfields, we are really, for anyone listening, we're really trying to get a hold of folks at the Mind Institute on campus to maybe help come in on the project if they're interested, certainly just lend their support and all of their knowledge, right, on building this thing out and possibly just serving as an interested stakeholder in that, since it will be for the whole entire region, certainly the local community to include their students and faculty, et cetera. So, you know, we are very interested in partnering with them in that project and beyond. And I think it was maybe a year and a half ago,
Tamiko and I had a meeting on campus with their recreation department to discuss, pickleball, and some other trends that we saw forecasted and how we might work together to address the needs, right, that are we're all experiencing. So we'll continue to knock on the door, and we're hopeful for a partnership in the future.
Yeah, that's good to know. And then I just had one other question. The splash pad, I was under the impression that that was mostly private funded. Am I incorrect on that?
It's primarily grant funded.
Okay,
Yeah.
because we have it priced out in this document, and it doesn't specify that, so I just was wondering about that.
Right, yeah, there's a very significant grant that's taking, I would say, it's 2.6, so it's taking, at least 2/3 of the cost of the splash pad. And then, of course, there's been significant community fundraising efforts led by the committee as well. So yeah, this does not actually account for that. This suggests that all of that is being borne by the city, and that's not entirely true, right? So that is an important distinction. And
Okay,
we
I
can
just-
have that clarified in the chart.
Okay, I was just curious about that, and I think that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, but related to the splash pad, it does bring up the issue of, again, ongoing maintenance. And every time we add an amenity to the library of amenities, we need to be considering how we're going to take care of that going forward. And so, yes, while we do have a tax measure, just know that that was implemented in a particular sort of snapshot in time, and yet our liabilities, so to speak, continue to increase over time associated with maintaining those. So I just wanted to make that distinction as well.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Okay.
I just wanted to tag on to that restroom discussion and the expense of that. With state parks, I've budgeted for a number of restrooms in remote areas, urban areas, and the like, and they are budget busters as far as the project goes. They're just very expensive, and we often just deal with vault toilets in these places, but where you've got utilities coming through, sewer running water and the like, that's all, those are just dollars you add onto your project estimates. And our funding for those kind of things only happens through special funds, not general funds, or bond acts. So they're real tough. And once you get them, you put them in, it's tough to keep them going, keep them maintained. It's amazing what the public does with these public facilities, as our crews Monday mornings tend to find out. And we have to put them in very different places. So we have floating restrooms, we call them SS Reliefs. So we've got a couple of new ones. I paddle out Lake Natoma 3 mornings a week. We have a couple of new ones out there. Those are really expensive. It's just amazing. So that's a tough industry.
Well, if you have a lead on any sort of incinerating toilet that can handle clothing shoved down them or anything like that, if not,
Our restrooms
Someone
burn
should have
down
been-
regular, if that's what you mean. We do purchase a lot through CXT, the prefab ones. One of the downsides on that is there are some folks that feel that architecturally they're a bit generic as far as park architecture goes, but you got to do what you can do with your budget.
Yes.
I just had one more question. I really also like the idea if we could possibly find out what other programs are going on in Davis and how they're, how popular they are, just because we don't want to duplicate. And it'd be really nice to know. I really like that idea. So.
All right, any other comments? Okay, I just have a couple of things. So one, we should chat about the inclusive playground, because I have some ideas and I have some already parents in the community that have kids with physical disabilities that are really good advocates, and I think that they would be great on a panel to start some design stuff. I also obviously have a background with and lots of relationships with people with physical disabilities, and I obviously have lived it for the last 20 years in my house, so I do know, I I think there is more that we could offer, basically, to the design, to the concepts, to like what these kids are gonna look for. I know, this past summer at Patwin Elementary, they, did some work on the playground. I don't know if you guys are aware.
Yeah. That
To
one
make-
and Willits, I think both are.
Okay, I wasn't aware of Willett, but I know Patwin. And, to the kids that get to use those amenities, it makes a world of difference, right? And so I think that's really important, and that's obviously something very close to my heart, so I just wanna make a plug for that. Secondly, just to kind of piggyback on some of the discussion up here with teens as I slowly embark on my parenting of teenage years.
Good luck.
Yeah, I already need it, so thanks. One of the things that, I would love to see the city maybe test out first before investing a lot of time and effort trying to create camps and things like that. These kids are, Tamika and I had briefly talked about it, they are overbooked. Like, most teens, they, play a sport, and they play a sport 360 days out of 365 days a year. They have clubs, they have, whatever, foreign language class, they play an instrument, they do drama, like whatever it may be. And so while the intent is good, I think that there is a time problem there. And I don't, I'm a big advocate to not overbook my child, because I really think that they need to have downtime and they need to have time to think to themselves. But I also think that it's good to be able to have some offerings, and I would like to use the 6th grade dance as a great example that the city of Davis puts on, right? It's once a year. Every 6th grader looks forward to that. They come out of there sweaty and had a blast, right? And so I think that leveraging events, right? A Friday night movie night, or like these kids want to do activities. They want to be surrounded by their peers. They want to not have a commitment, right? Their parents don't want to have another commitment that they have to drive them to every Tuesday and Thursday at 9 p.m. because that's the only time they can fit it in, right? Like, these are real issues, And so I really think that before you create 400 camps in the summertime that none of them are going to sign up for, because they're like, that's the one time I get to sleep in, sit on my phone all day and do nothing. Like, they're not going to go to camp. Let's, be realistic, right? And they're also at the age where they can stay by themselves for periods of time, things like that. The parents don't need childcare anymore. So I would really like to push to maybe creating more things like the 6th grade dance. I mean, I think that the city does a great job with that. I know my daughter had a blast when she went, and the kids before her had a blast. So, leveraging events that these kids are going to be interested in. I mean, even something to the extent of a TikTok dance party night or something, you know what I mean? We have to be, while we don't want them on it, they're going to be on it, right? So leveraging things that they're interested in is something that is going to spark their eyes, and then all of a sudden it's one kid wants to go and then the whole class goes, right? So those are the kind of marketing strategies I think we need to take, instead of the old school way of okay, we're going to put them in camp from 8 to 5. No teenager wants to do that, So anyways, and I also brought up to Tamiko is, giving back to the community is a big aspect for me. I grew up in Davis. I worked very closely with several different organizations in town, and I think leveraging, teens who are thinking about themselves all the time into community service is really important. And so advocating that and maybe doing partnerships with the senior center. The teens have much different hours than the seniors, and it's a space that we could potentially use for them, and also get more activity out of the senior center, right? To bring those groups together is also a really fun thing. So those are my kind of ideas for the teen thoughts, but I also just want to build on some of the co-sponsor groups in town. I know that you guys have collaborations in summer camps and summer groups. using some of the co-sponsored groups. And I think that in terms of revenue, expertise, I know every summer it's can be a struggle to find staffing for your summer camps and outdoor education and lifeguarding, and that's going to continue to probably be a theme. So, you know, really leveraging the infrastructures of these co-sponsored groups or nonprofit organizations that already have the capacity and looking for extra revenue to do a partnership with the city is going to be something that's really beneficial. It also limits the cost for the city, right, to have to put up all the amenities or air conditioning when there's like 25 days in a row of 115, right? So those are things like those partnerships would be something that I would really love to see more utilized. And I know that like the city really loves and owns a lot of the different pieces that have been, but sometimes we have to break away from legacy and be creative in our thinking to try to, you know, bring in additional revenue. Also, you know, encourage other groups to use the facilities as well. So I think that's all of my thoughts. With that being said, I don't think do we have any public comment for this item? Okay, no. So we'll go ahead and move on to item 8. No, wait, I lied. Item 7. Tamika, we can talk about long-range calendar items.
Yes, and just as a little summer preview, we will have some teen night out at the pool, a couple of different nights, so get ready to do that quick registration for your daughter.
Great, thanks. As if we don't spend enough time.
But just them.
Okay.
Just them, not us.
Great.
Just them. We'll have like, I don't know, pizza and it'll be cool and we won't be there.
Sounds great.
It's cool because the moms won't be there. Or these moms at least. So I remembered to include your long-range calendar in the packet this time. And just kind of had plugged in some of the other topics that we talked about or put them into the future topics section. And so some of the kind of things in our future are bringing up unmet needs and waiting lists. Also in March, it has just recently come on, is the Village Farms development proposal. And so that would be coming to you in March. So depending on kind of what else is coming, might make the recommendation to say moving the unmet needs waiting list to a March meeting if we don't have any kind of content for February, instead of just having one thing to talk about and then, you know, others, and kind of combining topics to have more of a meeting. In April is when we usually have DARTs come for the Community Pool User Agreement Annual Report. We used to appoint subcommittee members in February for Golden Heart, but they've actually combined Golden Heart with another award for the later May time. So either we'll do that in the late spring, or in May. I have to check in to see with the city manager's office on when they're going to do the actual review and then the appointing of it. Commissioner Ono recommended that we have July be when we do the landscape maintenance standards review, because that would be one full year with the first year of the contract. And so we'll prepare to have Bright V representation here and then have a report about how the year has been going. And then typically in September, we have our summer program review. You know, we address the community needs assessment strategic plan today. I will send you the annual video, like 10-minute video about AB 2404 and gender equity importance in sports video to watch, and then send me confirmation that you did watch it through email. It won't make us all watch it together. I trust that you can do this on your own. And, you know, as kind of outreach opportunities come up, we'll go ahead and send out notification and decide whether or not, like maybe in an off month, we do either another site visit or something like that. I think that's beneficial to get people out there to also engage with different people from the community. We've had public comments at our on-site tour locations where people have met us, so that clearly is an opportunity to engage with the community. So that's maybe something to also consider for other options of not necessarily having to have the structured meeting here in person, but if you want to be able to offer a special meeting instead of that same time or same day, maybe it's earlier or something like that to give, us time to walk around where it's still light out or whatnot. So that's kind of what's in our future. So I'll throw it back over to you all to see what sounds good and how you would like to proceed. Great. Any comments from commissioners? Go ahead.
The only thing that I have is, I wouldn't want to go 2 months in a row and not, sometimes if you're like, hey, we're going to talk about one thing, it's not worth having a meeting, roll it, but I don't think we should go 2 months without getting together and having a discussion.
Yeah, and so let's just remember, we have the batting cage survey to review with you all in February. So we would have something else.
The playfield's batting cage.
Oh, okay, I was like,
Not this one, not this one.
We told you it's moving
Okay.
quick.
Yeah, I mean, it might was.
Yeah.
Sure was. When we don't have to do it, it might be
Yeah,
that way.
right.
So we have some things kind of pending, but was there any comments or any other things that I missed off of the list that you recall?
what is, can you just remind me, what does the summer programming, I know you guys do it really early, so like next month, you guys are working on classes and things like that, and then I know it doesn't open but to the public, but can you just remind me what your guys' timeline looks like starting next month through June?
So in February, we'll go ahead and release the rec guide. And
Okay.
then in March, we're still working out, trying to finalize the registration dates.
Okay,
It may be the end of February this year, or just in March. And then summer programming does start in June.
okay, so given, I'm trying to be respectful of your guys' time too, because I know it takes time to prepare for these meetings also, and so, with that being said, my thought, and it all depends on what the timing of the February items are, if that has to be reviewed right away, but it would be nice to give you a reprieve for February while you're doing the guide and getting everything set up, and then if we meet in March, it's the third week in March, and hopefully you'll have opened enrollment by then, and you can have some preliminary assessments of like where you guys stand with your enrollments. And then that's an added item to go along with the other items that we would have discussed in February. And then that gives us 1 month off, and then back with a more hearty agenda for the March meeting. So that would be what I would suggest, but anyone else have comments?
Unless there's another mechanism to do it.
The February item for batting cages is, it's more of a council directive because they gave us approval to pursue a survey and then to bring that back over to the commission before taking it back to council.
Okay.
So just kind of fitting into their time schedule of when it would be slated to go back to council. I think it only fits in for us to be able to bring it in the February meeting.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's because of, basically the council meeting that it needs to go to occurs the night before our commission meeting in
Oh,
March.
shoot, okay.
So in order for that timeline to work out and get in front of council, I need to see you in February
That's fine.
Okay,
for that item. It should be
all
brief.
right. That's fine. Then we'll address the items in February. I was trying to help you guys.
Nice try.
I'd love
Yeah,
that help,
appreciate
but
it.
I appreciate that.
All right, well, if we don't have any other comments, anything else from staff? We're set? All right, well, if there's no objections to adjourning, we'd like to adjourn at 8:06 PM. Early. All right, thanks, everyone.